This conference will now be recorded.
It's on the consent agenda.
Good evening.
Hello?
I call the regular city council meeting of the governing body of the city of Blanco to order at 6:09. Roll call, please.
Mayor Lumpy,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sauceda,
Here.
Councilmember McClellan,
Present.
Councilmember Smith,
Present.
Councilmember Barron, present, Councilmember DeVon.
Great, thank you. We are going to move on to the invocation. Ms. Codwell.
Thank you. Let us pray. Oh God, you have bound us together in a common life. We are gathered here this evening out of concern for our community and desire to enhance the lives of those who call Blanco home. Unite us in our common purpose so we can work together to love our neighbors. God bless our elected leaders with courage, wisdom, and foresight to provide for the needs of all people so that we may live in justice, peace, and truth. Amen.
Thank you. Please join me and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are going to move on to announcements. So my first announcement is the current active COVID cases in Blanco County is 202 as of January 5th. The current risk level is severe and the current level of community transmission is high. This morning, the burn ban was enacted by the Commissioner's Court and it will remain until February 8th unless Judge Bray lifts it earlier. The Lavender Festival artwork call, the deadline is January 28th. There will be a water fluency workshop by the Texas Water Foundations on January 19th, 6 to 8, here at Gym of the Hills. There will also be a hometown habitat workshop at Gym of the Hills on January 30th, 5 to 7:30. The Hill Country Trail Rider annual Cowboy Breakfast at Yet Park starts at 7 a.m. on January 19th, I believe. It's a Saturday.
Can the volume be turned up a little bit, please?
Save the date for the Blanco Chamber of Commerce Mardi Gras Banquet and Ball, which is going to be on February 26th. There's a movie that will be filmed at the Twin Sisters Dance Hall and around the square starting this week and next week. And lastly, the annual trail ride will occur February 4th through the 6th through Blanco. Next, we have public comments. Christine Anderson.
evening. Can you hear me okay? No? Okay. How's that? How's that?
All righty.
My name is Christine Anderson. I'm a resident of the city of Blanco, and I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My term began in the summer of 2019 and technically ended in September, the summer of September of 2021. I planned to leave at that time, but our chairperson, Susan Moore, asked me to remain until all the issues with our updated zoning map were resolved. Although it felt like it took forever, that finally happened this past December, so now I can resign. Is this allowed enough for too long? We okay? I wish here to thank the City Hall staffers, Laurie Cassidy and Olga Gomez, along with former employee Bill Daves, for their kind and patient assistance during the past several years. Thank you guys. I also wish to acknowledge the support provided by Mayor Lumpy and Acting City Administrator Hester. It is also very important to share how much I enjoyed working with the Planning and Zoning Commission, both current and prior, and with Chairperson Susan Moore. Susan Moore and I became commissioners at the same time. We discovered we were neighbors and became good friends. We also realized we had almost nothing in common, which made for some lively discussions during our P&Z meetings. When we needed to elect a new chair, Susan was our obvious choice. She had the professional training and solid work ethic to get the tests on track, and she agreed to do it. When our P&Z secretary, Rachel Lumpy, was elected mayor, most of us realized we could not adequately do the secretarial job. So Susan agreed to assume that task too. She is focused, organized, direct, and honest, and with an obvious wish for solutions to be balanced and fair. Her minutes are seen as accurate and complete, and with enough detail to provide the reader with an understanding of why the concerns were handled as they were. Thanks to Chairperson Moore, the P&Z was able to tackle, address, and resolve a number of long-standing and overdue tasks and bring them to completion. At the same time, Chairperson Moore insisted that the commissioners act in accordance with the requirements stated in the Susan. I conclude these comments by reminding the city administrator and city council that the past several years have been long and difficult ones, and I'm very proud of what we have accomplished. With all that I have said, you can understand my concern and surprise when I learned that Susan is being fired as chairman of Planning and Zoning. I can only wonder if the city administrator and city council found Susan to be too thorough, too ethical, or to ask too many questions.
Nancy Arnold.
My name is Nancy Arnold, and I am a resident of Blanco. Thank you for letting me have my First Amendment. That is freedom of speech for those of you who may not know. I know that I've lived in this town longer than any of you on this council. I've seen lots of changes since the early 60s, and it seems Blanco is quickly going downhill because of so-called leadership. So I have questions that need to be answered. Number one, how can you prove to us that TCEQ is investigating the incident with the water? Some city employees say this is a lie. Why won't you admit that the real cause was the old, outdated equipment and infrastructure? Number three, isn't the real reason you're lying about the mishap is that so you can get rid of the best public works director that Blanco has had, Ronnie Rodriguez, just because you don't like it, and you want to outsource the public works department so you don't have to deal with it, and because you don't know what to do in the first place. Number four, why don't the citizens of Blanco get to vote if we want our local water and sewer to be run by a company 300 miles from Blanco who don't give a rat's behind about us? And good luck next election.
Heinz Roche.
everyone. I'm Heinz Rösch, and I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission and up for appointment to join the Capital Improvement Asset Management Advisory Committee if that is approved later tonight. I want to speak today concerning today's agenda item number 3, under new business, the removal of the P&C Commission Chair. I agreed to serve on this commission since I felt under the able leadership of Mrs. Moore, the commission developed a new, improved, and future-oriented zoning map. For those of you familiar with commission or council work, you can appreciate the hard work, dedication, and foresight that was needed, especially by the chair, to tackle such a monumental task. Mrs. Moore deserves special credit for this work, in my opinion. Anyhow, a little more than 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine told me that Mrs. Moore had been removed from the commission. After hearing this, I immediately contacted Mrs. Moore to hear from her exactly what has transpired to lead to this removal decision. What I learned from Mrs. Moore is that for the very first time since she has joined the commission a few years ago, she has been summoned to be informed that there have been complaints about her way of leading the commission. She offended someone. Instead of asking her to be more mindful in choosing her words when responding to citizens' concerns, she was asked to resign or be removed from the commission. Resigning was not an option for Mrs. Moore. Given her long and hard work she has put into that job, I believe that such a harsh reaction to in my opinion, somewhat minor infraction is disproportionate and unbalanced. During the last 12 years of my employment, I was Chief Operating Officer of a global investment bank and had over 2,500 staff report to me, so I know what personnel work means. If one of my supervisors wanted to get rid of an employee, he had to go through a multi-step process, much like the progressive disciplinary process outlined in the personnel policy handbook of Blanco. It started with a verbal counseling session where the employee had to be informed of what he is accused of and be given a chance to improve, followed by a verbal reprimand, which resulted in a notice personnel file, a written warning, and after that, a written warning with a specific improvement action plan. And if all that, and only if all that, those actions still did not result in an improved behavior, the termination would be considered. What I'm trying to illustrate is, I believe the removal of Mrs. Moore without giving her the chance for improvement is out of line. Mind you, Mrs. Moore did not steal grandma's silverware or committed a crime. She chose words that offended someone. I think the council today, I just need a few more seconds. I think the council today needs to overturn the removal decision and ask Mrs. Moore to continue her work while choosing her words and actions a bit more carefully. I'm afraid that if you uphold the decision to remove Mrs. Moore, you will negatively affect Blanco's future ability to attract and retain qualified, talented volunteers like Mrs. Moore to do the work at hand. Thank you for listening.
Susan Moore.
Mayor, City Council, my name is Susan Moore, 390 Blanco Avenue, and I am Chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I asked the Mayor and City Administrator if I could speak to the City Council before your vote on my removal from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Kelly texted me back that I could speak in the public comment section. So here's my 3 minutes of time. I sent each of you the unapproved minutes of the December P&Z meeting, which consumed most of my meeting with the mayor. Also, you have my statement regarding the issues discussed at the meeting. At that time, I declined to resign as I believe I have abided by all directives given by the administration to me and upheld the UDC code to the best of my ability. I will let my service for the past 2.5 years stand on this record. It has been an honor for me to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and my intent has always been in the best interest of the city. I am aware that P&Z commissioners serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the city council. and can be removed with or without cost, as stated in ordinance 2017-0007. Whatever you decide, I only wish the best for this council and the planning commission. Thank you for your time.
Scott Anderson. Scott Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to new business, item number 3. First, a question for you. How many of you were here in May of 2015 for the catastrophic flood?
We are not able to respond during public comments.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure you will agree, if you were, that Blanco's response to that flood with people like David and Mary Park, the Joneses, Mike Regan, the Moores, was a classic example of how people can react neighborly and helpfully, especially in a smaller community like Blanco, as opposed to a large metropolitan area of 1 million or 2 million people, where most of the people just wait for a government agency to fix the problem. But ironically, in a small community like Blanco, we also have the risk of people being so familiar with each other that there's a tendency to have leaders focus on personal interests, personal agendas, and helping friends. And this is where Sue Moore comes in. Sue is the standard, in my opinion, of what city leaders should be measured to. She is a very strong leader that, if you look at her preparation and response to the agenda at hand, her dedication is very obvious. Most important is her integrity and her allegiance to what is best for the city of Blanco, as opposed to, again, personal agendas and what's best for a friend. So I hope it's apparent to you, it certainly is to me, that Sue is a very strong blessing for the city of Blanco. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcella Murray.
My name is Marcella Mara. I live on 9th Street here in town and have since 1991, 30 years there. I owned my own successful company for 27 years and worked in management for Fortune 500 corporations prior to that. In that time, I have put hundreds of RFQs, that's request for qualifications, and RFPs, request for proposals, out. In that time, I have never once picked the best of the worst, when only presented with poor and limited respondents. I never settled and entered into a contract with them simply because no one qualified as best for the job responded to my original RFP. I kept on keeping on until I found a good company or a person for the task. It took time, sometimes a lot of time. It wasn't a once-off appeal that lasted 2 months or a box to check off. I needed a person or an entity that would bring their past successes, guarantees for significant measured improvement, and verifiable accomplishments in all areas, not the least of which was their customer service reputation. And never did I ever push out a current employee or contractor without overwhelming justification, and certainly not to help the company I was working for to fund another contractor whom I knew up front to be subpar, and whom my customers would not favor, and who would in fact treat them poorly based on their previous customer service history. The score of the customer service reviews of Infomark is 1.3. 1.3 out of 5. Let that sink in. Look around this room at the taxpayers of this town. Do you council members, mayor, city administrator, feel good about forcing this lackluster management company with such poor reviews onto us? All of us? If you do, then shame on you. Go back to the drawing board. Go back to the drawing board. Put forth the time and effort to get someone better. Don't just hire the best of the worst. Some around town are saying that doing what you're doing and in the way in which you're doing it smells like maybe someone's personal vendetta or a cover-up. I personally witnessed city officials in this town covering up in the past, and I've called them on it. Thankfully, they're gone now. So did this whole thing start as a personality conflict and evolve into a cover-up? Is the decision maker here profiting from this change unbeknownst to the rest of you? Only each of you knows that in your own heart. But the fact that in the midst of your search and evident willingness to settle for mediocrity for our taxpayers, you're preparing to terminate someone who has been an integral part of this water department and loyal to our taxpayers for so long, and all you offer up as a solution is a management organization known for their appalling customer service, who all of us will have to endure. It's reprehensible. What will your decision cost our taxpayers? Frustration, significant inconvenience, and decreased property value for all of us. Read the reviews and you'll know exactly what I'm speaking.
Wesley Merle.
Wesley Merle, lived at 815 Green Lawn, lived here since 1985. I personally know Ron. I've worked with the city, actually worked with the city, worked with City Public Works, and I am appalled at what is going on right now. With this possibility of hiring this company out from out of town that doesn't give a rat's behind about our water, about everybody sitting out here's water. When we had the snow and nobody had any water, these guys, and Ronnie personally, they were out here handing out water. Assure you that this company that y'all have not hired is not going to give one care whatsoever what's going on down here. These guys care. The fact that y'all have removed him or voting to remove him is absolutely appalling. And that happens, and I assure you, the council will be absolutely changed this next term.
Gail McClellan. Thank you.
Council people, men, women, mayor. I would have gone to P and Z with this, but the meeting was canceled. So I probably would have brought it to you anyway. The information that was sent out describing the new development proposal for 2 acres on Greenland Lawn Parkway came in this letter. I've spoken to Mr. Tceq, and he seems to have some good ideas, at least better ideas than the last development that was proposed. The concern is the statement in the letter that the intent is to save all the trees if possible. The city has a policy that heritage oaks must be left standing. There is a small fine attached to cutting down a heritage oak. I personally think it ought to include 6 months in jail, but I don't have a say in that. The oaks on this property are hundreds of years old. However, other developments have also wanted to cut down those trees for the sake of developing that same piece of land. I am just speaking for people who want the city to stand firm on no heritage oaks being cut down. We have to be good stewards of the gifts we have been given. This letter triggered the thought that maybe whoever spoke with Mr. Tceq did not stress the importance of these trees to the people in Blanco. It seems that decisions are being made so fast that we forget some of the details that make Blanco special. And we forget what is important to the citizens. It may be why our people are not being taken care of. We're dealing with water, wastewater, infrastructure, building permits, developments, zoning, and a multitude of other things. The beauty of Blanco used to be that it was a simple town. Now organizations are being invited in, and they want money that needs to be put to other things. They want money so that they can take control of our town and tell us how we need to do things. They don't care about Blanco. They don't care about our citizens. They only care about lining their pockets. Blanco citizens and workers are paying the price for this. We have a lot of smart people in Blanco. Susan Moore's one of them. Last month in December, I'm going to finish if y'all don't care. Last month in December, the planning and zoning team were praised and thanked for their controversial zoning law. I don't like that zoning law. Lots of people don't. But I would have voted for it because it's better than the last one. But this time, this meeting, Susan is up for removal from office. There's no one in this room more honest, forthright, and with more integrity than Susan. I don't agree with half of what Susan and I talk about, but she's honest and she's not got an agenda. So that made me think, who does have an agenda? And is that the way we treat Blanco people who work so hard for us? Who works harder or longer hours than Ronnie? It is so Ronnie was let go. Do politics rule on decisions made for our town and our people? Maybe Blanco is operating with the wrong perspective. Maybe people are more important than politics. We need to all work together to be a stronger city. We need to help each other. We need better communication between the Blanco people and the decision makers. If we understand both sides of each other, what is going on, we can make Blanco better. Right now, Blanco's falling apart. Nobody's happy. And maybe the people that pay taxes should have more input. Maybe town halls need to be held. When I read the agenda for tonight,
Ms. McClellan.
Maybe we should need that.
Thank you. Wendell Moore. Wendell Moore.
My name is Wendell Moore. My wife has served on the Planning and Zoning Commission for almost 3 years. I'm proud of Susan's service to this city, and I believe that she has given her best to the city of Blanco. She has spent many long hours researching the issues brought before this commission. She has asked hard questions that need to be answered, knowing that some may not like the questions and hard to answer. It is observed that the mayor and the city council would ask Susan to resign or to be removed from chairman of planning and zoning. Instead, you should be honored to have someone with Susan's integrity and worth it serving this community for free. I find it ironic that everywhere you look in this city, across this nation, there are help wanted signs in every business. Owners are begging for help. And here you sit tonight telling Susan, who has volunteered to work for free, that she needs to resign or the council will remove her from planning and zoning. I can tell you for sure that she's not going to resign because she hasn't done anything wrong. So if y'all choose to remove her, it's going to be your loss.
Retta Martin. Retta Martin.
I'm here to support Susan Moore. I met Susan Moore when she was running for, or I met her beforehand, but I got to know her when she was running for city council. She has such integrity and she has such high standards. And when she didn't get on the city council, we started looking for meeting and looking for her niche. I helped her find her niche because she wanted to help Blanco. And so we looked at this historic commission, we looked at PUC. And so Susan wound up at PUC and I was able to work with her a lot being on the historic commission. She has standards that are beyond reproach. I don't know what's going on, but I think that our First Amendment rights need to be brought into question on this. On both sides, I don't know what's happened, but I do think that when you're chair of it, this Rachel, when you're chair of a commission, it's hard, but I do know that she did nothing wrong. But I do think that the First Amendment rights began to be looked at, because I know that she stayed within those bounds, and I support her 100%.
Will Daves.
I wish it'd been more than a year since I stood at this podium, but it hasn't been that long. I know council has a tough job. Not everybody knows all the information that you have. The public's not always aware of the discussions, the executive sessions. They don't know necessarily always your opinions, or even your motives for that matter. I think everybody said a whole lot tonight, and I've just let a lot of that stand on what they said tonight. But I will say, I'll just simply leave it on your actions. Your actions in dealing with Ronnie specifically, now Susan Moore, that's a reflection on your character. Amen. The character that they have, the commitment they've given to the city, y'all deserve it. People deserve it. This council doesn't deserve people with this kind of character.
David Park. David Park.
Yes, my name is David Park, and I live at 1206 7th Street here in Blanco. And I'm here to voice my support for Susan Moore. And it is my hope, my wish, that she will be reinstated on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've known Susan and Wendell for a number of years. And in my opinion, they both exercise the highest integrity. Susan is a born leader, and born leaders have to make tough decisions sometimes. And I don't know the details of why someone complained about Susan. I don't know who that person complained to, but if it had anything to do with the property that's for sale on the south side of Blanco Road, I would like to just say a word. In May of 2015, I served as the director of the Blanco Flood Relief Center. Blanco was devastated by that flood. Again, I don't know how many of you were here at that time, but it was very trying and tough time for the whole community. But the community pulled together. As the director for the Blanco Flood Relief Center, it was one of my responsibilities was to go out and see the various areas in town and in the county that had been affected the most. One of those areas that had been devastated was along the south side of Blanco Road. The flood waters coming from Highway 251 overflowed in a holding tank and rushed across that property, which currently is for sale. And my understanding is for sale for the purpose of building homes. The property was completely inundated. The flood totally washed out the road leading from Blanco Road to the Moore's home, and it rushed into the senior apartments, which the Department of Agriculture has oversight for. It took weeks and months for volunteers from this community in coordination with the Department of Agriculture to repair those homes so that senior citizens, people in great need, could move into them. If Susan Moore reacted in some way that may have offended someone about the devastation that occurred along the south side of Blanco Road, in my opinion, she exercised common sense and leadership. And I hope that you will take that into consideration when you evaluate whether to reinstate Susan Moore on the Planning and Zoning Commission. She's a great leader, and we need her here in Blanco. There will be a tremendous loss of this community if she doesn't continue to serve on the commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have 2 additional comments. The first one is from Kenneth Moore. And he says, I would like to tell you what I personally know about Sue Moore. I have known Sue about 30 years. She is among the most honest and hardworking people I've known. She is kind, caring, and sensitive. She is compassionate and generous and lives the life of a true Christian who will do anything she can do to serve others. I am honored to have her as a family member and friend. Thank you, Kenneth Moore. And the second one is from Laura Swenson. I'm writing in regards to agenda item number new business number 1, the parking lot at Blanco United Methodist Church. The church is requesting the city to transfer to the church a parking area that is currently on city land on McCon Street. I urge you to not transfer over ownership of this area, but instead keep it as city owned. Number 1, the parking area is close proximity to the square and would be valuable parking space for larger events at the square. Number 2, this area can be revenue producing for the city, for example, by leasing or metering the spaces. And number 3, a solution could be to give the church exclusive access to the parking area during services, but be open to the public all other times, perhaps in exchange for the exclusive access to the church to be responsible for maintenance. In general, I believe the city should keep as much land as possible. Land can be very difficult to get back in the future, and we need more public spaces that are open for all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments from GoToMeeting? Okay, we are going to move on to presentation. The Gem of the Hills presentation, though, has been moved to February. So we are going to move on to staff presentations. First, we have City Hall by Ms. Kinsler.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Can you hear me? Thank you. I actually don't have a presentation tonight. I just wanted to point out a couple things that I want to introduce Warren to everybody. Because I sat in the meeting with the mayor and Susan Moore, I want to make sure that it's clear to the body that the mayor did not ask Susan Moore to resign from the Planning and Zoning Commission, only from the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I saw this evening, there's some confusion about that. So since I was in there with you, I thought I would clear that up. And then second of all, I wanted to talk about Mr. Doucette, Ms. McClellan talked about him. I'm the one who walked the property with him, and his intention was to get rid of scrub trees. He's very well aware of the city ordinance for heritage oak trees. Wanted to clear that up. And then also, I was hoping that Warren Escovy could come up. As you all know, this is the city council's choice for the new city administrator, the permanent city administrator, which is a really cool thing for Blanco. I want everybody to know that Warren has experience from the city of Sealy. And he also has a lot of development experience and flood management experience that's going to prove really helpful to Blanco. So this is Warren Escovy.
And I really would like to meet every one of you that is here tonight. I think it's a great community. I've been listening to a lot of people talking in the council, and I think there's a lot of good things that they've already done, a lot of things that we continue to do, and I think Kelly's done a really good job kind of getting to this point. So I would thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works, Mr. Doris.
Evening, Council Mayor. I only have one thing to inform you about. Earlier today, we lost a lift station pump at Pittsburgh lift station. Completely burned up. So now Pittsburgh and our main lift station are both only operating at 50% capacity. I've gotten calls into a couple companies that we use for pump repair and things like that, and they're trying to get me quotes to see what they can do. We'll be monitoring it every few hours tonight to make sure it stays running, nothing overflows. But that's the situation we got right now.
Thank you. The Police Department, Chief Rubin.
Could I just ask a question before what does that pump do? What's the
So basically, all
for a 50% capacity, what are we?
So typically we have two pumps that are operating. They're both handling flow that comes into that lift station, and that sends it over across the river to the main lift station, which then sends it to the wastewater treatment. So now that we only have one pump in there, if something were to happen, we have no way to get rid of that water. So that's kind of the worst case scenario, but.
So it deals primarily with the wastewater plant.
Correct. I got a solution right here.
Chief Rubin.
Got the monthly report in the packet. We're currently now taking all these numbers to cover up with our annual report. We'll have that for you tonight.
Thank you. We are going to move on to the consent agenda, and the following items may be acted upon in one motion. There is one item from new business, item number 7, discussion and consideration and possible action on the approval of the annual UDC updates approved by Planning and Zoning Commission that I would like to move to the consent agenda. So with that being said, item 1, approval of minutes from the November 9th, 2021 regular city council meeting. Item 2, approval of minutes from the November 30th, 2021 city council meeting. 3, approval of the minutes from the December 7th, 2021 special city council meeting and public hearing. Item 4, approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 special city council meeting. Item 5, discussion and possible action on capital improvement assessment management advisory committee. Item 6, approval of the appointment of Hans Roche to replace Christine Anderson on the capital improvement assessment management advisory committee. Item 7, presentation, discussion, and possible action on the approval of the amendment to the interlocal agreement between the City of Blanco and the Blanco Emergency Services District Number 2. Item 8, approval of the update to UDC sections 2.3, planning and zoning, membership and voting. Item 9, approval of an amendment to the City of Blanco Personnel Policy Manual section 2.05E3. Item 10, approval of amendment to the City of Blanco City Administrative Agreement. And item 11, discussion and consideration and possible action on the approval of the annual UDC updates approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I have a question about item number 9, where it's talking about amending the manual amended to add and provide any employee termination appeal, etc. But in it, it said any decision of the mayor shall be final and not subject to further appeal. I'm thinking of,
We can remove item 9 if you would.
I'd like to remove it to have further discussion about it.
Sir.
Councilmember Smith, would you like to amend your motion?
I'd like to amend my motion to include item number 9 on your consent agenda.
Councilmember Smith has made a motion to approve all of the consent agenda with the exception of number 9, which will be pulled out for new business. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Barron has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business. Item 1, presentation, discussion, and possible action on parking lot at the Blanco United Methodist
board discussed at great length, and the subsequent day, the mayor issued her letter ruling on the matter. So with respect to the procedure that's outlined here, in fact, that's what happened. This just puts it in writing. Now, with respect to the last sentence, that's a lawyer sentence that simply says, and it's a policy decision for you to make. I added in there because the manual currently provides that there's no other appeal beyond the mayor. So I put that in, I reiterated that with the understanding that there is a right under applicable law for the employee to go to court, Texas Workforce Commission, and other remedies that are available under applicable law. So that's the explanation of why this amendment is here. In talking with the city administrator and on my own evaluation, I felt that there should be some language to beef up the procedure for the benefit of the employee and the city, so everyone understood how that procedure would work. And that's the motive behind this language. So, any questions?
I guess my concern was the, as far as the city goes, the buck stops with the mayor. And in some cases, I think there should be an appeal, at least to this council.
Yes.
You say it's for department heads, I don't think every employee, but especially department heads, because of their roles and the importance of them, that I would feel more comfortable that coming to city council.
I have another question. Your proposed change is not retroactive.
No, that would not be.
It should not. Forward, it would not affect it.
Without an amendment by council, were they to approve this without an amendment to make it retroactive, which is questionable, but it could be done. It wouldn't be retroactive. In addressing the concerns raised here, it's not my job, frankly, to make that policy decision. The current personnel manual states that the final appeal is to the mayor. Of course, council could, at an appropriate agenda setting, it's not on the agenda tonight, to make that appeal a further appeal if they wish to do that. So,
Change it.
any other questions?
People said change it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Where are we here?
You are on item 9 in the consent agenda regarding the policy, personnel policy.
Did we not remove that?
We did. It's under.
Oh, under new business.
What's under number? What are you asking? It's under number 9 on the consent agenda. Yes. But we've moved it to, so now we are in new business.
And so that moved into new business.
Yes. So we're making a motion.
I would move that we postpone it.
Okay, Councilmember McClellan has moved to table item number 9. Is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Sauceda has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? So it's 2-2. And I am going to vote with the tabling of this agenda item. So the motion carries 3-2. We are going to go back to item 1 of the new business, which is the parking lot at the Blanco United Methodist Church. Ms. Kinsler?
There we go. I know you all have the map, but I wanted to make sure that the public could see the map. And sir, if you want to come up here with me. So I was approached by the Methodist Church about, can you point out what part of the parking lot we're talking about, please?
Sure.
The long-term plan is to expand the church's parking lot.
Well, the long-term plan we're currently working on is a pavilion and playground in honor of Harold Florian Lord. It's going to be a playground that's open to the public. Whoever wants to come use it, as long as we have a church function, it'll be open to the public. That's currently what we're working on. The other piece of kind of facilities work I was doing, we have one parcel here. It's this church property as it is now. We acquired this piece of property that has this striped thing.
Could you move somewhere where we can?
Sorry.
There we go.
Trying to please everybody.
Just don't know where you're pointing.
Now I won't know. So this area here is where the pavilion will be. That piece of property we acquired 2 years ago. So I would like to get that platted, I guess I'm not loud enough. I'd like to get that platted into one piece of property. And what I discovered in that is the strip of land between the ribbon curve of the road and what is currently church parking and green space is actually not church property. It's a weird one-sided right-of-way that's a lot wider than you would need for a street, and it just happens to be the spare properties on the church's side of the street. So what I would like the city to do is grant us this piece of property so that we can continue the parking lot down to the end. And currently, roughly here, if I'm letting everybody see, the improved piece of road stops, although Pecan Street actually comes to here. So that's the other piece that, as far as our construction timeline goes, it would be best for us to happen sooner than later. Not that any construction can happen fast in today's market, but that being extended to the end of the road would be beneficial for this playground that we would like to get opened up and open for the public to use. So if we have this on our piece of property, we can develop that under our timelines and with our dollars instead of waiting on the city to extend that to the end and asking the city to create a parking lot where currently none exists.
So I don't think we need to go through the background anymore. I believe that, what's your last name?
Stoss.
I thought I was saying it wrong. Okay, Mr. Stoss has explained what the church is basically asking for. If you go back to the, you can, Zach, to the PowerPoint.
Talk about it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we went through that. Mr. Stoss already talked to you about possibly combining the parcels. The maintenance and any issues with that, obviously, one of the benefits would be that would be the church's responsibility, not the city's. Additionally, I know the church is interested in getting the improved part of Pecan Street extended to the very end. So for a recommendation and fiscal impact, the extension of Pecan Street obviously would have a negative fiscal impact on the city. It's not one that you can bear right now. As far as recommendation, that's council discretion, obviously, on donation and parking lot, but I do recommend no action on the extension of Pecan Street until we have an accurate street inventory and a little more accurate
revenue projections, really. So,
I've got a question. Sure. You know, I understand, I believe this is a good local property and discuss it. All right, I'm sorry. I did walk the property. Pull it towards you. How about that? I did walk the property with the church staff and discussed them. And I want to know if effectively you can accomplish the same thing if the city retained ownership of the property and if the church wished to implement placing head-in parking like you have further to the north on your property. Give you the authority to do the head-in parking and the road structure or extension on street meeting our roadway standards. Would that be something that would work for the church?
It would, but it would cause future limitations that if we ever wanted to go away from a parking lot there, it would move where our building setbacks start. So currently, if we put in head-in parking like we plan to, and the city line stayed the same, we can build no closer than 15, 25 feet. I don't remember what the number is off the top of my head. It just locks us in to where that current property line is.
If we consider doing a waiver to a setback that would be agreeable to council, or, and I really believe this, if you're going to vary, and I guess this Fiscal can answer this, if we want to vary a setback, we have to go back for B and C, or can it be done by council without one?
That was a question for you.
Sorry.
I can answer for you.
Oh, go ahead.
You would need to go through bid.
Is your timeline such that you need a definite decision tonight, or we work with you on this and try to find a resolution for the city and?
We can definitely work on it. The building steel is ordered and due to be delivered anytime February-ish, unless they change again. So we can access the property through the grass, through what's currently there. I mean, it's
right.
not a hindrance. It is.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my setback concern is a future issue. Yeah. If we want to put another building in 10 years, I would rather have more property to deal with that building than currently where the setbacks are.
I would be supportive of presenting an action to the authority to do paving work. I'm not supportive, or I don't have the ability to grant you a setback variance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we could visit that at another time. Go ahead and hopefully give you the authority to do it. But I'm going to concur with our city administrator that I don't believe, I personally would be supportive of tendering the property to another entity.
Okay.
All right, you answered my question. Thank you.
Given the history of like 15th Street, I don't know that we could be
right. Well,
jumping through a lot of hoops.
So,
If the setback that you're talking about, that property too, I can't see Beacon Street ever being widened there to where we would have to take over those parking spaces. There isn't anything out there at the end to justify widening Beacon Street. The Church of Christ next door has the same parking situation there. And I think it would be well to keep that as public parking for use during our festivals and whatnot. But then I can see where the setback would be a problem. If the setback right where Peacock Street presently is, it wouldn't be a problem. Is that right?
It's a limitation that I'd like to remove. At current use, no, we have no problem with that. But in the future, if we want to put another building in there for expansion, we're going to have to understand.
And you mentioned earlier a playground is,
Yes, ma'am.
and can you show on the map where that is?
Maybe.
Or is that?
Yes, fiscal impact. How big is that?
Just a reminder that everybody has had their time to do public comments, so there should be no more public comments at this time. Thank you.
So the playground, the pavilion for the playground is this element here. And I'll flip around and repeat this for the crowd. And then all of this area here is going to be the playground type materials, the climbing elements, the horseshoe pits, all of those type of things. So that'll extend roughly to here with a wall around it and decorating and whatnot.
And you mentioned that that would be open to all citizens?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for if you would a property owner or another entity to perform construction work within a city right of way. Can you repeat the question? Yes, there is a problem. Could you tell me what the problem is? Well, you've got to take.
You might need to use the mic.
Yeah, you would need to take some action to authorize that activity. You could do it otherwise legally,
You're
yes.
going to take action tonight to allow them to do that. Is there any other consequences as long as they follow the minimum standards for?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I have to do that.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we allow the Blanco United Methodist Church to improve the roadway and place head-in parking within the right-of-way for future use, for their use and municipal uses, not a specific use for the church. And I would, that's the only thing I'll make a motion. But at the appropriate time, we'll be glad to the proper procedures to look at that issue because of the heading part.
We have a motion from Councilmember Smith to approve the Blanco United Methodist Church with improving their roadway and head-in parking. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, the roadway, they need to be compliant with the minimum standards set by the city of Blanco.
And the roadway should be in compliance with the city standards. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Barron has seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on, item 2, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the rental of the Byers building. Ms. Kinsler.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Council. This was actually just a quick PowerPoint idea that was brought up by Councilmember Barron.
And I'm going to table this for now, for more discussions, just for benefit. We're trying to figure out areas of way that we might be able to use some of the city property for the benefit of citizens to be able to use some meetings, to be able to do some rental and availability, but we have some structural issues we probably need to discuss first before we consider whether we can go further. So I'd like to think about that some more, at the table, that.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on, item 3, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the removal of the planning and zoning chairperson.
You ready?
Ms. Kinst.
Okay, you say Ms. Kinst. Sorry. So, just for a quick discussion, so we can bring this hopefully to a close. Mayor Lumpy met with Susan Moore, the current chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Commission at your request, and she asked me to join her to be a witness at the meeting. I was there. Mayor Lumpy asked Chairperson Moore to step down as the chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Commission, not to step down from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then shortly after our meeting, the attached email in your packet was received from Ms. Moore. And so the discussion is you all need to act on this evening, because you need to have a planning and zoning meeting in February. I mean, we can't wait for February for these decisions on.
What is that scheduled for?
It would be the first Monday of February.
February 7th.
What day?
February 7th.
Thank you.
Would it be possible to postpone this and have a special meeting to discuss this further?
Mayor, Councilmember McClellan, that's up to the body.
We can definitely do that if that's what we decide to do tonight. Don't want to keep kicking the can down the road though.
Madam Mayor, I ask that we table item 3 in the new business.
Okay, Councilmember Smith has moved to table item 3. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Discussion?
So the only question I have is, if it's tabled, then she still is chair.
Correct. All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Item 4.
Thank you.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action on the elimination of the sale of bulk water at the City of Blanco until a procedure can be established for council approval.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Council. So the city currently sells bulk water, 1,000 gallons for $25. It has come to my attention that the majority of these accounts, that are used, they're not inside the city limits. And they're also in use for some businesses outside of bulk water customers that come into City Hall to pay for bulk water. They let the clerk know how much water they're buying. They pay for the water, then they take a.
Excuse me, if you would like to have discussions, please have it outside so we can continue our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got this one. So then they pay for the water. They take the key down to Jones Street. They fill up their water trucks, and then that's basically the way the bulk sales. So the next slide. From what I can establish, these are the 5 users of the bulk water, the city's water. And so if you go to the next slide. The recommendation is that, first of all, that's a very nominal amount for the water that is being purchased. But I also want you to know that it's very hard to track this right now. Our best estimate was that the city earned $6,800 in revenue last year from bulk water sales. But what has been done for some time in the city, when bulk water sales, and there's a deposit made, it goes into this miscellaneous revenue. And so the CFO tried to extract those out by looking at each of them. So this is our guess. They're now being deposited in the proper account.
the proper line item is now there. But I just want you to know 6817 is the best guess of what you made on that water. So what I'm going to recommend is that you discontinue the sale of bulk water right now. And if sales are continued, then I think applications should come to this body, and you all can approve each application to, determine whether or not it's in the best interest of the citizens of Blanco or not. It really removes any type of favors being done or anything like that to City Hall. We let the sun shine on the bulk water purchases, and you all decide if it's a direct benefit to the citizens or not.
Thanks.
I'll stand for question.
Could not the same thing, and maybe this is off the agenda, I don't know, could not the same kind of thing be done with our wastewater sales also? So have some kind of a system where there's some equality out there.
Mayor, Council Member McClellan, unfortunately, I look like it's not on the agenda, so you're correct. We can't talk about it, but we have talked about that in the past, and it needs to be discussed.
My initial thought is that, depending on the availability of water, sometimes we have surplus water, and then when we get to stage 4 and 5, the water needs to be submitted to the citizens.
Mayor, Councilmember Smith, this is not treated water from the wastewater.
No, I'm not talking about
Oh,
that. I'm sorry. Seasonally, we'll have water shortages, have to go to our secondary supplier, and right now our only supplier. And I think that it would be certainly best for the citizens of Blanco to not sell bulk water during those times. And I am supportive of this action going forward. And then we can, if we do adopt a program, I'd ask that we consider to take into consideration the availability of water and not make a commitment that we would sell it to not.
I think that's great. I just think it's,
We need a process. We need a process.
You need a process.
That is flexible enough to go with availability of water and is fair so that anybody that wants to buy it knows if it's available, how to get it, and how much to pay for it, and that we're careful with monitoring.
If I remember right, I thought during restrictions, that's the first people that get cut off anyway, right? So I'm not sure what stage of restrictions, but
I don't know.
when we get to that certain point, I mean, that's the first thing that we cut off, so.
I know we have high.
And then, if anything, look at the price of the 1,000 gallons. I know when we came up with that price, it was the going rate, so I think we could review that and then maybe have a different rate for when we're on Candy Lake like we are right now, because it is costing more. But to cut off some of these customers that we've had for a while, I don't think it's fair out of the blue, just because we need to come up with this process, the lack of process has worked for this long. It hasn't really hurt anything. The other thing is, from what I understand, sometimes that helps clean out the water. I mean, we need to get rid of some of that water at that side of town, so that was another reason to put the hydrant where it is. So I think we do need to come up with a better process, but I would hate to stop what's going on. You could have a business that's has a job and looking, at using that right now, and changing the whole thing. Now they have to go further to get it. So.
And Mayor, Councilmember Seth said, I think that's the key word right there. Better process is not a process. Here's the key. Don't feel like you need a process. I agree totally. And, maybe you can task the city manager with coming up with a process for your February agenda.
Right, and I said we can give them 30 days notice and not cut them off. I know that for the next 30 days, they can continue to buy the water, and within 30 days, we should certainly be able to come up with a process just to inform them how to proceed on and be aware of things. So we all know what's going on.
I'll just make a motion to table it for the next meeting. That'll give us 30 days to come up with the process.
So Mayor Pro Tem Sauceda has moved to table this until a process has been proposed. Is there a second?
Oh,
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Perfect, thank you.
We're going to move on to item 5. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on the City of Blanco contracting with Inframark to operate the city water treatment and wastewater treatment plant. Ms. Kinsler.
Can you hear me? Is that in my phone?
No.
Is it on there?
No.
Yeah? Test. Test.
The light is not coming on.
Okay, so this presentation is about the possibility of having Inframark take over the water, the management of the water and wastewater treatment facilities. As I'm sure you all remember, you voted unanimously to put an RFQ out and go fishing and see what we got. We have had, I'm going to kind of take you through the timeline real quick. The RFQ for this was issued on October the 6th. There was a mandatory pre-submission conference that 4 vendors attended. I attended, and our members of our Public Works Department attended. We received the proposals from the contractors November 23rd. The first committee meeting that we had, we reviewed the RFQs. We had 2 citizens on the committee, who Mike Regan and OJ Arnold. What is it? There you go, Armstrong. I knew I had it. Sorry, and OJ Armstrong. They were very helpful. A lot of the technical stuff they did really well with. We also had public works staff there at that meeting as well. We did the interviews on December the 1st, and then we did the evaluations of the submittals for completeness. And the citizens, the entire committee actually voted unanimously for Inframark. And that committee, of course, like I said, included the citizens and some public work employees. So what happened then is December 7th, this was brought back to you. So this has come to several meetings already. This is brought back to you for contract negotiations. And so what you really did is you authorized the city administrator to enter into contract negotiations with Inframark and see where we got. This timeline that we published in the RFQ showed that we would try to award the contract before February 8th or by February 8th, and then there would be a possible March 7th start date. There's a couple things I want to tell you about Inframark. First of all, our due diligence was done with Inframark. References were checked not only by me from other cities, but Councilmember Smith also participated with the due diligence checks. They were vetted. I also spoke to a company out of Bryan, Texas, that builds wastewater and water treatment plants, and they rated them very high. So it is interesting. Mayor, can you please remind the public that they've already spoken as part of yours?
Yes, if you want to have a conversation, please have it outside. Public comments have already been made.
Thank you, appreciate that. So anyway, we have very high ratings from, not from actual customers of Inframark, actual cities that use it, actually builders that built plants and then they ran the plants. Oddly enough today, in speaking about Inframark, your current city administrator, actually his old area was a customer of Inframark. And actually, why don't you tell them what your experience was?
Mayor, Council. So I don't have any experience with having done any of this negotiation. I will tell you that I live in an area, Fort Bend County, Single Ranch, and lived there for about 14 and a half years. And from a customer standpoint, you never had a problem. There's been issues. companies take care of things. And so from the standpoint of the customer only, they've been very
So in addition to the vetting, we happened to run across, I had no idea that Mr. MLB was familiar with Grab My Life. Let's see. So as you can see, I don't need to read this to you. We've already discussed the reasons. We discussed the reasons for the solicitation. If you look at that calendar, the first time we met about this. That was our goal. That was our reason for the RFQ. But if you go to the next slide, there's some key components of the agreement with Infomark that Infomark is bringing to the table that I don't see how anybody could argue with. First of all, they bring the level of professionalism. This is all they do. They run these plants around the United States. That's it. But the other thing, from a city administrator perspective and from somebody trying to protect your taxpayers, they assume the risk and the liability. That's big. That's really big. And I hope everybody's hearing me on that. That is huge. The liability and the risk transfers to them. The city no longer has that. So some of the other components of the agreement that we've been working on for some time now, there's a fixed guarantee fee. So it's so much easier when you are constructing a budget because we know what the fixed amount is. The maintenance and oversight, obviously they do. Their management, the regulatory systems are all computerized. So that what they have is so much more than we have, the software. They have TCEQ reporting, just like we do, and they have the interface support to do that. They will also be providing professional monthly reports of the progress and the happenings at the water treatment plant. Guaranteed permit compliance. So if we don't comply with the permit, like we haven't this year since I've been here a few times, Infomark actually will have to not only remedy it, they'll have to pay the fine. All support resources necessary to perform the work. So they would assume it, the thing that the city would end up keeping would be the payment part, because we like that personalization, people coming in, paying their water bill, or calling about it, so that we have city staff are actually being able to contact Infomark, which would be one of the public works employees, because Infomark will hire everybody. But we keep that component. And so the clerk who now calls public works employees when she gets a complaint or a concern, they're doing the exact same thing that she's always done. And
a question about hiring our personnel. We have some people that have worked for 4 or 5 years for the city and they've got a benefit package. Are they going to lose that as they move to a different employer? What will happen to their benefits?
Mayor, council, the one thing that you all made very clear, that I made very clear to Infomark, and we had to do a lot of creative negotiating to make certain that it happens. Every employee will be made whole. Right here, they have, if I can go to and then we can come back to key components. Go there to the first, where it says cost savings, keep going. Okay, there you go. So included in this 1.088 budget. Yeah, so included in that are 5 positions. And if you see, you can see the cost savings below. What ends up happening is because the city provides employer insurance, health insurance to the employee for free, they will increase their base salaries because they can't change the Infomark personnel policies and have the employees, only these employees not pay for insurance. So what they're going to do is increase their salaries so that it's a wash, or in a couple of cases, actually going to be better. So what I'd like to do at this point, the managed and cap funds, if you'll go right there, I would like to introduce you to Ed Schwab. He is with Invocation, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the scope of work and the way they manage the cost.
If you could actually go back to that last one just a little bit. The one with the
This one. The managed and cap funds, yeah.
one right there.
Oh, okay.
I just want to really emphasize the things that we're bringing to the community that it's not possible for a standalone community to have. Communities just like Blackmore are really small and medium-sized communities that don't have the resources and the capacity to do some of these things on a scale that makes them efficient. So it's really difficult to, for example, have a computerized maintenance management system and a computerized regulatory tracking system. But we can bring that in, turn it on, and have it up and running, tracking all the maintenance of your equipment, tracking all your samples in a matter of a couple of months. When I've seen communities take spend tens of thousands of dollars trying to get that stood up. I have Ryan Quigley with me, he's our director of operations here in Texas. And he's one of the top water guys in Texas. He has a team with him that are also professional experts in Texas, 10, 20, and 30 years of experience. So included with our budget is all the resources necessary to perform the work, including electricians and mechanics and water operators and wastewater operators, our HR department, our finance department, et cetera, et cetera. And it just becomes an economy of scale. Because we operate so many facilities, particularly in Texas. We have a relationship with Tceq. We know what they're looking for. We know how to talk to them. We know the reports that they need. So we will represent you at Tceq. We will represent you when you hire an engineer, because we're not an engineering firm. And we will support you when you have to make financial decisions with data that allows you to make the right decision to move forward with those costs at these facilities. The other thing we're going to do is an initial equipment condition assessment. Now, your water plant's going to basically be new. We went out with your staff and looked at some of the things that weren't included in the operating facility. And we have some ideas on how to replace some valves and some pumps out there that need attention. We have the ability, with what you were talking about earlier about the lift station, because of our capacity and our resources, I would have a pump on its way here as we speak. And this is something that when you're only running one community, you just don't have that bandwidth to have all that help on demand. When there's a significant weather event or a flood, you can bring it up. When that happened, the one that personally comes to mind for me was Harvey when it hit Houston. We operate the north side of Houston and Kingwood. We've been there for 50 years. But when that got hit, all of the resources in that area were taken up and consumed with running the facilities. And we were able to keep Kingwood running with no boil water notice through the whole event. I happened to be in Oklahoma City where we operated our company. As soon as it was safe for our team to come in, we were on the road with caravan, electricians, mechanics, and operators coming down to help our team, leave them from duty. We had trailers, we had everything from water coolers and barbecue grills, managing facilities 24/7. So that's what we're bringing to Blanco. The other thing that's really important is over $225,000 in capital, because we feel it's important to make the folks that are here as successful as possible. We talked quite a bit about the condition of the backhoe that's over a knowable number of years old. As I understand it, you can't scrape it and scoop it at the same time. The jetter rodder trailer is old and past its useful life. That makes their work harder, makes them more inefficient, not through any fault of their own. None of the limitations they have is their fault. They're good people doing good work. We're going to make them more successful. So we're bringing all the equipment necessary, computers, software, et cetera, including our. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, the other day, we had a major leak on 281 there right close to City Hall. And these guys were on it, they were working down there in the hole, and it was cold and miserable. They worked through the night. Will that still happen?
Absolutely.
And how soon can it get on site?
I want to buy them better coats maybe, but our business, this is part of the challenge. I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I didn't pick on very nice. Nobody's picking our business, and we're all getting older. It's called the silver tsunami. So attracting qualified people to our industry, training them, keeping them in the community so that they don't train up and leave to a better paying community. We're offering these guys a better career, more support, more help. And we talked about the fact that in the past, there has not been a big need for outside help on water break or sewer stoppage because they've handled it. We're going to be able to help determine if handling it is getting done quick enough. Then we don't want to wear them out and drive them into having an accident or working too long or be useless for 3 days because they were up for 40 hours. So if it makes sense, we also operate a lot of facilities in the Austin area, primarily funds and primarily distribution and collection support resources that if needed, we can bring in to relieve these guys. God forbid they have the same mess as we placed at one time. So that happens in our business. That's the nature of our business. I spent many nights out in the cold. At that time in my career, it was Florida, so it wasn't that cold. But these don't happen when it's convenient. The next slide. So in order to be as cost effective for the community, and considering that we don't have a lot of good historical data to rely on to do the right thing, we were managing some variable funds associated with costs. The repair and maintenance, the laboratory, the sludge, and the chemicals. And a lot of that is due to the rehab of the water facility. So we're going to work really closely to properly and accurately track those costs, make them as efficient as possible. And then after the first year, we'll work with your staff to determine if it makes sense for us to take those on and guarantee them or keep them as a fund that we manage. But that was really honestly the best way to get started with it. Get that good data. Next one. So we're going to do everything they're doing now. We'll talk quite a bit about one of my old examples is I don't want to come in and say this is what we're going to do and then they hang Christmas lights and we didn't know that. So we talked about Christmas lights. We talked about the mowing. We talked about the cleaning the streets. We talked about the maintenance of the buildings. Changing light bulbs, fixing door knobs, whatever it is. So whatever they're doing now, we make sure we got it into it. And if during the first year we miss something, we're still going to do it. We'll just get it cleaned up, call Tim and say we need a little amendment and we'll keep moving forward. Our relationship.
How many other cities do you provide these services? Because I was under the impression that it was just the water and wastewater treatments that y'all deal with.
We do public works in other communities. I think off the top of my head, the one in my area, primarily in Texas and Oklahoma, was Mustang, Oklahoma. We've done full public works. We used to even do dog catching. That's not what I do anymore. And we're looking at doing more of that. We do a lot of it in Georgia, full public works. So,
thank you.
Next one. Now this one you can't see very much, but I know you've got this in a handout. And what's really important about this is we're not talking about paying us on top of what we're spending. We work really closely with your CFO, went through the budget with a fine-tooth comb, answered questions of the committee with a fine-tooth comb of where all these costs are. And I put, that was put on the slide because there's a lot of line items we're going to take over that are included in our budget. Anything from the labor, the cell phones, a lot of miscellaneous things in there. But it's really important for partners to understand that there's still costs you're going to have. This is not privatization. We're not buying the facility. It's a public-private partnership, and we're going to be your partner in this. And there's things that the owner that you're still going to have. And the way to start a relationship is to be open and fair and honest about what all those are, so that everybody's very clear. I actually started a relationship in San Marcos that still exists over 20 years later, because this is how you start. And there's still going to be approximately, based on the numbers that we worked with your CFO on, $460,000 that is still going to be on your side of the list. Some of that's for purchased water. When the water plant's done, that's going to go away. So how this all works out is going to be very clear in the coming meetings. But in every meeting, you're going to have a monthly report with a accounting of everything that happened in the previous one. Kelly, do you want to?
Sure.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
So you can see the next slide is about cost savings. And with them hiring 5 public works employees, we still realize a cost savings down there. That could possibly be adjusted because now we're down to 4 public works employees. But even with 5, you still had a cost savings. So it can certainly be a further cost savings. Just want you to know that I have some experience, not with doing a public-private partnership for a wastewater treatment plant or water treatment plant, but I do for a detention facility. And the same skepticism I remember very well in the county commission chambers and in that room. The guards, the directors, everybody was very concerned for their jobs and what was going to happen. I will have you know that Matt Ellen, who is the director, now actually consults, trying to get some of the cities who have detention facilities and are having a hard time to do a public-private partnership because it worked so well. The one thing that I've noticed in my past from doing something like this, and I've realized the same thing with this one, the guaranteed fixed costs. You need that right now. That would really stabilize the budget process. The other thing about it is the city gets the unexpended funds at the end of the year. So it's sort of like, your insurance, if you're a good driver, right, to get that check back. So it would be the same thing here. The software that they come with, Blanco can't afford. The tools that they come with, Blanco can't afford. The computerized maintenance, the capital asset committee, who is chaired by Mike Regan, have discussed computerized maintenance or the lack thereof since that committee formed. We have this now with Infomark. All the equipment that is so old and outdated, it doesn't function properly, that we need. Normally, in a city like this, we would try to figure out one budget at a time, 1 year at a time budget, what we could possibly add in there. It's all here with Infomark. It's all at your disposal. It's at your employees' disposal. It would take the city many, many, many years to acquire the pieces of equipment that Infomark would have here first. The other thing, as far as the employees go, one thing that we got into several conversations about, I like the fact that Infomark says, so for me, I get excited when I think employees, they can grow, they can learn, they can train. But what if they don't want to? What if they like exactly what they're doing and they want to stay right here? And Infomark says, that's okay, but they will have the opportunity to grow if they want. The first full month at Infomark is all training. And so the trainings that they give alone, just for us to send our public works employees to these trainings, I think it would be so expensive. And that's part of it. So for that reason, and I just want to make it really clear, This was a unanimous decision to go and put this RFQ out there. This was a unanimous decision by the committee, which included citizens and public works, to have me negotiate with him. So I heard under the table, best of the worst. All references weren't checked out. There was plenty of due diligence done along the way. This has not been a process that we brought up tonight. This has been a process since the summer, or maybe early fall here. So this is how an RFQ honestly should go. The committee was well prepared. They asked for questions. The company is vetted. Then you look at the budget. Oh, we have a budget savings. You look at the staff. Oh, everybody is made whole for better. And by the way, they're all going to get training, and you can't give them any equipment. You can't. And the staff has room to grow if they want to, but are not going to be forced to. And so this is one of the last things on my list before I head into the big city. I just want to make it really clear. It does not cost the taxpayer any extra to enter into this private partnership with Infomart versus running the plan ourselves. And as I showed you on the cost savings, there's even, a little bit of extra money there. Because of all of these reasons, the unanimous decisions along the way, and the extreme amount of time that is taken to come up with a package for the city of Blanco that actually complements the department, the city, and the employees. I strongly recommend that this council enter into a contract with Infomart for, I'm going to try to get the language right here, for the operation of the city's water treatment plant and wastewater treatment. And I will stand for questions, and I'm sure Ed will have any questions as well.
So the budget numbers on here off of last year's budget.
I think that's our budget for this year. This year's budget that we have. The current fiscal year.
We based on last year's that we really don't know if they were accurate or not.
Another good reason is that we need people who can keep really good accurate records. We cannot get anything to because of our staff. We don't have that. We don't have accurate inventory records. We don't have accurate asset management records.
Well, I guess that's my fear is if we don't have accurate numbers, how do we know that these numbers?
Exactly.
What it costs to run it currently, but sure.
So that's not what I said. What I said was, we know that we don't have that information. We know we don't have an asset management plan. We know we don't have computerized maintenance. We know that we're not sitting there counting the filters, making sure they're not disappearing. We know that we're not doing that stuff right now. They've got a computerized system that assists the employees in doing that. And so when you talk about this budget for this year, which this body approved also unanimously, you were told that this was our best guess going forward. And what we hope to do 6 months in is come back and reduce some of these costs. So what we try to do is we try to give you worst case scenario. So that, if that argument isn't valid, if we give you worst case scenario, I really hope that Mr. Estevy is able to come in, as I talked about during the budget season, 6 months in, when we're a little more able to closely monitor the revenues and the expenditures. And I'm hoping, and we talked about this, that there'll be some cost savings, or maybe there's something else y'all can do, piece of equipment you can buy or something. But so this, we believe, based on our best guess, is the worst case scenario.
I think just operating the plants and with bigger and better and everything, just the electrical costs alone are going to be more than what we've had in the past.
I'm just gonna say, I have not spent hours exploring this. I have spent weeks exploring this. I have read every contract. I have called businesses. I have talked to employees. I have talked to former employees. I have talked to residents. I have taken advantage of engineers and water and wastewater experts who live in our community, who know this organization, who know what our needs are. And I have to say, I would not recommend this if I didn't in my heart of hearts after weeks of work and investigation, say this is the best thing for the citizens of Buffalo right now.
I have a question about the terms, the 10-year term. 10 years is a lot. So is that?
So let me answer that, and then I don't know if Mr. Tuggy has anything to add. One thing that you always put in the contract is what's called a non-appropriation clause. And so if the city does not have the budget to do this, the body decides that's the case, and there's a non-appropriation clause in it. So I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
That's the major point. It's an initial.
Madam Mayor, I had a contract with you, I did have the same question. But I did, I said, you know, about 5 years and things of that nature. But there are other terms in the contract that allow us to let.
Precisely. You have the ability, it's a 10-year term with 5-year renewable extensions, 5 years at a time. But the non-appropriation clause is a standard in legal parlance, often called termination for convenience, in favor of the government entity, you, where the city council in the future can decide, hey, you know, we're not going to appropriate money for this contract and terminate the contract without all this, for that reason alone.
And quite frankly, it's Infomark's responsibility in the meantime to show you and the citizens that they can operate professional firms.
I also had a question about section 3.1.5. It says that the client shall maintain all sewer lines, pipes, force mains, and all other water transportation lines that are not part of the facilities under operator control. So do we have those lines? Do we have like a specific documents of which lines are covered and which lines are not?
I think that's under our client's responsibility.
So I'm not saying, I believe it's an allowance.
What the purpose then is we've evaluated the facilities, we have estimates of miles, pipe, and everything. But if suddenly you found a 10-mile pipe or longer pipe down the road or something that nobody knew about, and you say, oh, that's included in the facility, because we have a facility description. So this is things that, if there was a pipe or something that nobody knew about, we're not responsible for. What would happen if we found one, is we'd get together and meet and decide whether or not that increases our cost. If it doesn't, we've done dependent all the time. We've done the best we can, and I commend both the city attorney and city administrator and the council to make this contract as good as possible. That doesn't mean that here we want to pay for a couple things, but that's the intent of that. Is that if there's nothing we can do about it.
I had that concern too, that there's something that we are responsible for, but all of our employees are working for you. Who do we get to do it?
98% of our clients renew their contracts. That's because when I stand here and say things, this guy is on, and I base my reputation 40 years in this business on that. So, you know, we're not going to stand up here and make promises we can't deliver.
Can you also address in the same section about the client vehicles?
Yeah, one of the things that was our directive was to be as cost effective as possible. So that's one of the reasons we're spreading the cost of this capital equipment out over 10 years. It's in your favor. It's the reason for the cap budgets. And with vehicles, normally, because our efficiency depends on the equipment working, we would come in and just take over your vehicle. Well, you got pretty good vehicles. We are gonna take those over. We're gonna buy them for $1. And the reason for that is if you charge me $10,000, I'd charge you $10,010. So that wouldn't make any sense, right? So you're gonna provide it to us, one truck. And when those vehicles start to wear out, you come to you, and maybe you can buy the new one cheaper than we do. Some cities have a great government purchasing policy, and will say, hey, I'll provide you another one. Or I'll say, hey, I can get a Ford, Chevy, Nissan, whatever I can buy today, because it's scarce. I can buy it cheaper. We'll agree on how to replace that vehicle. Quite honestly, we have to have some control over that, because I've been in communities where they say they'll provide, and I end up with a used cop car. So we have to be able to say to you, hey, you need a truck, because I don't want these guys out in the middle of the night not being able to start a truck.
You know, through months of conversation and back and forth, I want to speak a little bit about vehicles, because not only do you know what your premiums are going to go down, how much they'll go down, but when TML sends out your premiums for next year, you actually would be able to remove the public works vehicles plus the public works employees. And so your insurance coverage with TML would change and the price would increase. So there's another cost savings realized at this time.
And for the employees, you mentioned earlier that if they don't feel like they want to move up the ladder, they can stay where they are. Does that guarantee they will be staying in the city of Blanco?
Mayor, council members, yes, if they want to stay in the city of Blanco, they can. And if they don't want to move up, they don't have to move up. They do, however, have to go get trained.
Okay, because I don't think I saw anything about having them stay in Blanco.
One of the reasons we can't put that in the contract, and Tceq can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't tell the employees where they stay or go. Slave labor ended a long time ago. We have opportunities for growth, but we need people that are perfectly happy where they are. And a lot of times, you know, the guy above me is only 1 year older, he'll never retire, so he doesn't move up. We have opportunities to move up. We have opportunities to move up and stay in Blanco, because someday these guys will be experts in something, maintenance, operations, whatever, and we may need help in Austin, so they can go there and still live here and still work for America. So the opportunity is tremendous. So it wouldn't make sense to put in the contract that I can guarantee employment or guarantee stay.
Okay. And the equipment that you mentioned earlier, right now, our equipment at the wastewater plant is out of date and needs fixing. So that would include helping with those equipment get up to code.
We have a backhoe and a cheddar tractor in both.
Okay. And
with your approval, we'll probably order a little more.
And with that being said, right now we are not discharging, but it is set up as a discharge plant. Are you able to work in those conditions?
Can you be responsible for vehicle maintenance?
It's one of the reasons we want to purchase vehicles, we become responsible for their maintenance instead of leaving it on your budget. And that way we can ensure them as well. These are all very good questions, and same questions we've been asked for 2 weeks.
So everybody, any of us are available for questions. If you have any questions related to the contract, the negotiations, whatever, like I said, if you went back to a former county of mine, every staff member, including the director and the citizens, was very happy with the finance partnership. It enhanced professionalism, and it ended up costing the county less. It was a 454 bed detention facility. But there was the skepticism in the room, just like there is this evening. It's scary. doing this. I understand that. And that's why there's months that goes into something like this, of assessment and negotiation, and trying to figure out, because you know, I'm negotiating on your behalf. And I definitely feel like the contract with Infomark is absolutely in the best interest of citizens, and it is fiscally responsible.
So back to Keith's question about benefits, employee benefits, so their retirement, basically they were losing here. I mean, or it's not going to get transferred over.
So they had a similar retirement with Infomark, but if the employee is vested, then no, their retirement just stays there. If they're not vested, they can ask for a refund. And I think there was only one that was vested, maybe two. One.
The overall feedback from the employees.
We had employees take the 4 companies around. And then the first meeting we had employees in, committee meeting, we had employees were involved every meeting. And employees voted for Infomark, just like the community members did and the city. That was unanimous.
Would it be appropriate to get some input from them tonight?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's willing to talk to the employees.
Please. Please.
Employees that were involved in the project.
Yeah.
Please stop that.
Mr. Doris,
You'd like to find out what your concern and or.
How do you think
How you
they'll be
feel about
honest
it.
with everything?
Y'all need to just
Because of things.
comment.
Please. There are no more public comments. Please let us proceed with the meeting. Mr. Doris.
Obviously, so the scene in the meetings we all had. I have the opportunity, if we're willing to put this kind of money towards a company to come in here and run this, just because they have better resources than us. You're saying we're not efficient enough because we don't have the resources they have. Give us the resources. We already have loyal employees here that have given our time and effort, heart and soul, missed hours and days with families. It's kind of an insult, honestly.
My grandmother did this work, I'm doing this work, I love my community, nothing against y'all, nothing that, I don't have anything against y'all, it's just, I feel like we should stay the way we are, like Tceq said, give us the money, the resources. I'm sure there's money we can find to be able to get us to that. Our service unit old, but it still works, it's not like that. So I feel like we should stay as a city of Blanco.
Thank you.
So from a budget perspective, you're not able to give public works back. That's the issue, right there. If you all were able to buy all the capital and all the maintenance programs and the software, that would be great. But that's going to take you 10 to 20 years to do something like that. And that's where the budget and the fiscal piece of this becomes so important. You don't have the funds, and it's not fair. It's not fair to these guys that they operate. I mean, I remember walking in first month or something, and they had this street repair machine, brand new. And it's like they had it for like 5 years, never used it. Why? Because they couldn't afford a doctor. Those types of worries, they're gone. So when the guys say they want the tools, you can't
give them that a public-private partnership. That's the difference. And they are still here. They are working for the citizens of Blanco. They are all hired and still working and still doing the jobs they've been doing, but with better training, chances for advancement, better equipment, better tools, better software systems. And so I think everybody is nervous, but it's not like they're all, that we're shipping everybody off. And you can see every employee who's been working hard here, working for that, and will continue to work for us here, with us here, but with a lot better resources within a budget that we could never have provided.
Okay, so why can't you get a comment from an actual person that doing this? Sir, they asked you like how many times.
I don't care. The thing is that they're not that interested in legal law, they actually knows anything about this. Yeah, well, just.
Can I say one more thing, please?
Sure.
Just
I want to hear from you.
bring this up. You are all aware, we have not had budget information for as long as I can think. As long as I'm in public works, director, we haven't had that information. So to be fair, when you say we can't afford it, no, we can't afford it. We can find ways to afford it. If we had, the fact is, we're looking at doing this, we don't even know what it costs us right now. What if it costs way less than? This feels like we're rushing into a decision that we don't have a lot of access.
Has Ms. Coons, has the finance director, Ms. Coons, been involved with this process and with the budget?
The entire process.
Yes.
Public works exposure for we do not vote
It wasn't from us. I didn't. No.
Is there a reason that we are, I know that we all have been, the committee has been working on it for a long time now, but for us that have not been involved, is there a reason that we're trying to push through that so fast?
Mayor, if you'll go back to the timeline for me. This is an RFQ. This is not gone fast. This started in when?
No, I understand that it's been a long process, but the rest of this council and the citizens, we have not had as long as time to process everything and to fully understand it. So I would recommend tabling it, but I don't have that.
I think if for no other reason, I think the public needs to know more about it. If there was some way we could hold some kind of a public forum, somehow to let people know, this looks really good, but I think it's coming that the perception out there is that we're selling out to some big outfit from outside. And perhaps the public needs to be a little better informed about what the potential is here. Do take a look and look at a way at least to get the public involved better.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Councilmember McClellan has moved to table it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'm just gonna ask for discussion purposes in order to go along with the spirit of Councilor McClellan's motion. What I'm gonna recommend is that some Saturday between now and February, you have a town hall. And you listen to your citizens. And you have Invermark here so that they can answer any and all questions. That's what I would recommend you. Maybe that way, and my concern is the time in the budget. I'd really like to do something. But if you want to further vet this thing, why not have a town hall meeting? And I think that's nothing wrong with that.
But it needed, in order to do that, we need to table this, do we not?
Yes. That's exactly right. So anyway, that's my suggestion, and as attorney just said, I'm about to do this. All this would mean is modifying the motion to table it and direct the staff to have a town hall meeting so that you all can learn more and the citizens can learn more. Just an idea.
Would you like to amend your motion?
Yes, not sure how to word that.
You want to table it and you're going to direct the staff to have a city hall, a town hall meeting so that the citizens and the council can ask further questions of Invermark. How's that?
So moved.
Councilmember McClellan has amended his motion to include, to direct the city staff to have a town hall for citizens to ask Infomark questions. And is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Salceda has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Let's move on to item 6, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the creation of a US 281 overlay review committee. Ms. Kinsler.
Mayor, Council, thank you. So currently the city is in contract with Apple Design Services.
Excuse me, Ms. Kinsler, can you just wait a few seconds
Yes.
to let the crowds? Okay, thank you.
So currently, and you all, you gave me authority back in December to contract with Atlas Designs for a 281 overlay. And so we have now signed the contract with Atlas Design Services. And I believe that we need to appoint a 281 steering committee. And this is what Atlas Design would like to see. It has one city council member, one member of the P&Z. They want a business owner on 281 in the Blanco area, and they want a residential owner on 281 in the area. And then they want an owner of undeveloped property on 281 in the Blanco area. They would like to have this group to work with, appointed by you all, so that they can get the project started. I don't know if Tommy's here or not, but Brandon Milan is. He's from Atlas Design Services. And if you have any questions, either he or I can answer them, probably. And just so we go to the end of this real quick, the creation of this committee should have no fiscal impact. Your fiscal impact was the $41,000 or $2,000 that you're paying Atlas Design Services to get this done. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Mayor Nelson, Brandon White, with Kate Reese, we're the partner. And just I'm here representing Atlas and Kate Reese. how excited I am for the opportunity to work and say that I asked Tommy Spong, Jonathan Thompson, who is Alex Design. So extremely excited to be a part of this effort. I'm from Bernie, Texas. Just around the corner, so I've got roots here in Hill Country. I had the opportunity to play in zoning director for the city of Wolverine. So personally, I've got experience in this area. My government constraints in all facing in terms of transportation, the character of the city, and the extreme growth directions that I have when this experience. So again, just on behalf of the board of Games, thank you all for this opportunity. If I have any questions, happy to answer. And thank you for.
Would you explain what an overlay is?
Yes, sir. An overlay in very complex planning terms is zoning that's overlaid on top of other zoning. So the city of Blanco, like most other cities, have base zoning districts. You've got your single family districts, your commercial districts, industrial districts. And an overlay is a zoning tool that is typically supported by a planning document, a planning process. So zoning is an implementation mechanism. Zoning is not planning. Zoning is the result of a planning process that involves the community, involves the elected leaders, appointed leaders, and the citizens, businesses, residents of the community. Everybody gets together and they come up with a vision. And based on that vision, then the community planning and zoning commission and the city council implement that by creating a new zoning that supplements and is placed on top of the other zoning that specifically implements the strategies, the tools, the regulations, the land use framework, basically the desired vision for a particular area. In this case, that'll be the 281. So it's basically an extra set of very forward-thinking regulations and guidelines.
And I think that it's also important to note, this is a development tool that you can use, because the one consistent thing I hear, no matter what side of the road you're on in Blanco, Texas, is keep Blanco, Blanco. That's what everybody says, keep Blanco, Blanco. Right? And so what this does is it allows you to determine development standards along your 281 corridor so that you can keep Blanco, Blanco.
So how do you envision fulfilling these positions? Would it be us picking? And then the only other question I have is, would anybody be against having an at-large person? I mean, there may be somebody in the community willing to do some work that doesn't fit one of these criteria, and we hate to turn anybody away. So whether we have one or two at-large spots, or that there might be a person that went through this exact same thing some other place.
So they requested 5 people, you can have 10 or 15.
Right. I know we don't want too many, but I mean,
Yeah,
I just know there may be somebody that.
This was just their suggestion. They're willing to take whoever. They just want community input. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Steering committee is a great way to.
You talking about?
Thank you. In every community, there's several boards and commissions. There's also, during the planning process, there's usually a business stakeholder group that represents the very unique concerns of individual businesses. Businesses may have different concerns than your residents that have been here for a long time. Sometimes even your large-scale property owners may have even more complex concerns than businesses because their properties aren't really developed yet. Maybe concerned with parking. Property owners are concerned with, what future users they can sell their property to. So everybody has very diverse interests. And so in a lot of cities, take the step, which I think is a great step, and what we're talking about tonight, to create a steering committee that is the central organizing unit for the planning process. And they can potentially report back to this city council, they can report to the planning and zoning commission. So that they're the guiding process, community's guidance process. Bring everybody back together. That's why y'all are discussing potentially having somebody from the planning and zoning commission, city council, business community, resident community, you have an interest, a person that represents the interests of each of those complex entities that come to the table to be a part of the process.
And if you do decide to have a special meeting so that they can get started on their work, I would suggest maybe to the new city administrator, this
I would just say that I know you're ready to get started. Just get started. I took the liberty of starting to contact people along 281 just to see if we could find some folks who would be willing to step up and get it started so the meetings can begin. But again, what he's saying, this committee is just to give them feedback on the community. Who should we reach out to? Who do we need to talk to? Who should be at the table for this? When is the best time to have a city meeting? What are the facilities here? Those are the aspects, if I understand it correctly. The purpose of the steering committee is to help them figure out how to work within the community and bring the interest parties together. Irene Page lives on 281. She's one of the few people that I know that lives right on 281 and has lived here her whole life. I think she is willing to participate as the residential person on 281. So these are your folks who said, I'll do it as we're looking. Emily Becker, Tceq Cafe. Emily's willing to represent businesses at least to get us started, because I think you want to have a meeting like next week. Yesterday. So if we can get those in and start, and then, like you said, Martin, I think we want to have as many people who want to come to these. It'll be posted, it'll be, whoever wants to come, the more the merrier, and there will be public meetings with public input. This is just so we can say, they got somebody to say, okay, who else should we call? Who should be included? Who should we reach out to? And that's the goal. People familiar with the community. Yeah. People who live here and know it and understand 281.
Well, I mean, I think it's more than just 281. I mean, I don't live on 281, but I'm here. And that's why the limitation is saying either have a business on 281 or live on 281, where everybody, goes on 281. So that's why I like the two at large, because, and one that I've talked to is the lady Laura from Wilson Beach. She was being here. So somebody like her would be perfect because she wants to put in the time.
Yeah, and I think she actually has undeveloped property that
She might probably lose.
So I think she even should be in the category. And I think the idea is, I mean, these meetings are going to be open and as many people, we just got to get board who's willing to show up to get these guys started. I was looking at the list of things you have to have. Yes.
But yeah, if you can come up with an initial group tonight, we want to appoint them and then reserve the right to add more or whatever. Don't forget what these guys are doing. They're going into the public. That's exactly what they're doing. Is they're getting public input. So the steering committee board just kind of helps them along the way.
But if Laura Swinson is willing to put Laura down as the undeveloped property, if y'all are willing to, Irene Page is willing to serve, Emily Becker is willing to serve. I'm happy to do the spot and do the work for this, except, oh my God, the research. But I'm happy to, if the council's.
PNC.
Pardon?
How about for PNC?
Well, we're about to, I'm wondering if we, Hines is already going to be on the management committee. We're probably, am I wrong there, we may be having a special meeting to fill out PNC before the February meeting. Are we going to
give applications pending the meeting?
So maybe we can fill that one in after the commission's filled out. But at least that would give us enough to get started. Fill in the PNC person as soon as we have a chance.
So Laura Swinson Yes, from Wheels and Feet.
Yes.
Okay, but she's the undeveloped property.
I'm not sure.
We don't know this.
See,
And today, all we're doing is taking action on the creation of the committee.
Right.
So we don't necessarily have to have all the names to you at this.
You don't, Mayor, Council, but I will warn you, that means that we're going to take this can down the road a little more. If you can't come up with 5 names. And if you want to do that, that's fine. If you want to come up with 5 names tonight, and then all of you decide, let's appoint, 10 or 7. You're the council, you decide each one.
More.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. That should be such a problem we should have that everybody wants to.
So right now we have 4 names, is that correct?
Yeah. Lee Beckler as a business owner, Irene Cage as a resident, Laura Swinson. And I think she is an undeveloped property owner. I think she's still in the category. She doesn't look like somebody else who has more undeveloped property if we find out who that is. And so the only ones we wouldn't have is somebody from P and Z right now. We haven't passed those folks yet. We're getting ready to appoint a lot of new commissioners, so we could leave that one and at least get the meeting started and then bring them on as soon as the commissions go out.
I'd like to recommend Candy Carville if possible. I don't know if she would accept it or not, but she's pretty outspoken about 281.
She is. Well, she is not active.
Right. Yeah. Right. So we get
Yeah.
That's when you're missing
That's right. So can we move ahead and just, if we fill in those names and then just leave it be open until we get the commission approach the members?
No reason you can't do that, but that's your call.
Is there a motion?
I move that we start the steering committee with the following participants: Connie Barron for city council, Emily Becker representing business, Irene Cage as a resident, Laura Swinson, undeveloped property, I think she did. And then we leave the P and Z position open until we completed the commission and then talk to the commissioners to see who would like to serve. That would be-
Councilmember Barron has made a motion to proceed with the steering commission of the US 281 overlay with Connie Barron, Emily Becker, Laura Swinson, and Irene Cage. Is there a second?
Candy Carville.
I would like to talk to her before. These other people have confirmed already. So at this point, I feel more comfortable.
And so Mayor, Councilmember McClellan, what the new city administrator will do is they'll just carry this forward to hopefully your next special meeting or whatever. And you can confirm with other people that they want to be on each appointment. But this does give them a start, to start with more people at least. And hopefully by the time they have their second meeting, you all will be appointed to their roles.
I'll second it.
Mayor Pro Tem Sauceda has seconded. Any further discussion? There is an ordinance that needs to be approved, I believe. Do we need to, Tim, do we need to add that to the motion? To create the commission?
Do we need to pass the ordinance?
Yes. We just use that form.
Right.
We insert the names.
Then it would be the first ordinance for 22, so 22 votes.
So I would restate the motion to.
Yes. Councilmember Barron.
Okay. We adopt the ordinance creating the steering committee for the study of highly including on the border region within the city of Bluffton. Composed of, should I go ahead with the whole proposal? Okay. So, Councilor Barron representing City Council, Emily Becker representing business owner on 281, Iris Cake representing residential owner on 281, and Laura Swinson representing adult property. Yeah, okay.
Is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem Sauceda has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all very much. Forward to work.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We are going to move on to item 8. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on expanding the city's existing GIS wastewater maps.
So a little bit of history on this. As you all know, Mike Regan was chair of the Capital Infrastructure Committee. It's finding out all sorts of interesting details and products that Lakeland has did not know about. So he has been working with HR Green, and they actually sent him 3 work orders for expansion of the city's GIS wastewater maps. And the 3 work orders were for, the first one was creating the zoning map layer, which will depict the newly approved zones. I remarked that as 3rd priority. Upload and cleaning of the Jones-Heroy water system map. Upload of city streets and creation of a database template, which will ultimately lead to color-coded map of the city's streets and depicts the condition of the streets. So that was really, can you go to the next one? So that's really, can't see this. So that's really the 3 items that we're here to talk about. The GIS maps will help this Capital Infrastructure Committee and Public Works actually, and the city engineer plan and develop work in the future. It's difficult right now to identify shovel-ready projects or even develop an execution strategy without understanding the city's infrastructure, something else that we don't have and we don't have the ability right now. The current city engineer is using a picture of the water system map located on the wall in City Hall. There's one picture that we have there. That's what he uses. The streets would be the 2nd priority. So that's 1st priority up there. Streets, 2nd priority. It's still a high priority for citizens, as you know. I hear it all the time, and I know you do. But this will be a great communication tool for the city council and the citizens. So when you have somebody saying, can you, expand Pecan, can you expand 14, can you fix this? You'll have your ranking system available so you know what streets are the highest priority. Zoning is the 3rd choice, if you go back. Zoning is the 3rd choice, but the committee supports including it, especially since you just approved a brand new zoning map. In your presentation, you see Mr. Armstrong's photos. He and Mike Regan did a lot of work here. You have amazing volunteers, but their photos are attached in your packets, and they illustrate the challenge that Blanco water and sewer lines have. They're past their design life and they're located under paved surfaces. So paving the streets without remedying the underlying infrastructure is honestly irresponsible. A comprehensive methodical approach to gradual improvement of the subsurface infrastructure is the objective of this committee. So the committee also has discussed, which I discussed with you, which Intermark definitely has had an input on, a comprehensive approach to what we're doing. And it just makes it that much more important. The maps, though, the GIS maps, those are critical to development of your comprehensive plan. Next. So an additional $18,000 work order was proposed by HR Green to field verify the locations of the water system infrastructure. This is a major component of the $45,000. The wastewater GIS maps have been field verified and plotted using GPS. And the committee at this time does recommend approval of the $18,000 to HR Green for the water system field verification work. But they do not recommend, am I right?
No, you said do recommend the 18,000, don't recommend the 18.
Oh, yeah, sorry, it says does not. I didn't say not. So they do not recommend the $18,000 at this time, but they do recommend the $10,250, which is the upgrade of that GIS map. The map I told you, your city engineer goes to the clerk and looks at that paper on the wall. The cost of populating the street database is actually free because it'll include a combination of the committees and volunteers. So these guys are going to go out and volunteer to do the street work for free, as directed by HR Green. So we don't need a company to come in and do that. So I don't even know the amount of money that saves the city, but I know it's a good amount of money. So the fiscal impact, Mike Rieken is the chair of the Capital Improvement Committee. They did not expect the GIS maps to impact Infomark's pricing, and they do not. The three expenditures total was $10,250. The funds could either come from your reserve or from the CLFRF. And I just recommend that you follow the recommendation of the Capital Improvement and Asset Management Committee and fund the $10,250 that this committee is recommending. The next one, is it?
CLRF, that's the relief fund, right? So, I mean, I'm all for it, but it's hate going to reserves every time. It seems like things come up and go to reserves, and eventually there are no reserves. So I would, recommend if we did do it, to take it out of,
I would agree. Mayor, council members, I said I agree. And also, there is somebody, if you recall, when you all gave us priorities on your spending, we didn't use all of the CLFRF funds. So you do have to care.
I just want to say again, I can't tell you how many hours poor Mike Rieken doesn't answer my calls anymore. Because I call him every day, and hours, and he and his committees are spending incredible amounts of time. They can save this city hundreds of thousands of dollars. And their work will save us far more than that once they finish creating the tools we have to have. And I put it in an email blast I put out to people, because people have no understanding of how horrific our infrastructure is right now. We are paying millions and millions and millions of dollars to get sewer to the man and get water to your house. And it's, I can't manage to get that through anybody to realize what we're really doing. But thanks to these guys, we're finally helping us get a handle on it, so we'll be able to track it and begin to set priorities and budgets. And while we got such wonderful expertise available to us, we have to fund the best we can these expenditures to further their work for the long-term benefit of Blanco. We just can't quit. We can't keep putting the in the diet here, there, every time something comes out. A more intelligent, longer-term plan. So I like to move that we take the money out of our
Before you make that motion, I just want to make sure, Mr. Rieken, do you have anything else to say before we proceed?
I do. You all, so water information is really hard to come by. The paper map on the wall behind Olga's desk is that's it. I mean, that's what Zach goes to for information. He and I talk frequently about this. And in 2019, you all paid, or the city paid, for Jones Heroy engineering firm to go through all the paper maps and as-bills from the past and compile all of that into a digital format. It exists, but we can't use it. So that's what this is about, is uploading that, and there's some cleanup work to do with it, but the bulk of the work's been done, but it's inaccessible. So it's not just for our committee. I mean, Public Works probably
needs it as much more than we do. So the water side, the street side, we're uploading public information, and we're creating a database. So we're gonna have sheets of paper, like, the width of the road, a condition rating, like full of potholes or, you know, whatever, condition rating. And, we'll have some volunteers who will go down the roads, and we'll make sure that it's not biased, so we'll cross-check one another. Plainville's not that big, and we'll populate the database, so you have a visual representation of the roads, so as the roads are fixed, you'll be able to see the system, you'll be able to see it. It's a really powerful tool, it's using a lot of the data that's already out there.
Thank you.
For a pretty small cost.
Is there a motion?
There is. Yes, I move that we use CLFRS funds to provide the $10,250. Is that what we're looking at? Yes, $10,250 based upon the committee's recommendation to provide for the uploading of the GIS.
Councilmember Barron has moved to approve the upgrade of the city's GIS maps at a total cost of $10,250. Is there a second?
Out of the CLFRF.
Oh, out of the CLFRF funds. Is there a second? Councilmember Smith has seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. So at 8:50, we are going to move into executive session. Item 1, Texas Government Code, Section 55.
This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. I don't need it. That's it.
So at 9:54, we are back from executive session. There is no action. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Councilmember Smith has moved to adjourn. Is there a second? Councilmember Barron has seconded. All in favor? At 9:55, we are adjourned.
I convinced you. Hey, I gotta go.